For today's review, we are looking at the Marvel Legends X-Men 97 Nightcrawler. And Nightcrawler is the last figure that I have in terms of the X-Men 97 wave of figures that I was able to acquire. And I hope that in the future, they will reissue Storm, Bishop, and Magneto, because I did miss out on those three figures. And also, I hope that in the future, whenever there's a new season of X-Men 97 that is out, they do make another X-Men 97 wave of figures. And hopefully in that wave, there's Morph, Jubilee, Beast, maybe Xavier in his wheelchair, Bastion, right? Like, these are just like options. And yeah, really hope to see more characters in figure forms, again, in this depiction of what they look like. And with that said, let's talk about Nightcrawler, because that's what we're here to do today. So, of course, let's start with the accessories. He does come with 3 accessories. And let's start with the 2 on the figure. So he does have these open gesture hands, as you can see right here. And if you want to swap them because you don't like them, and you want to get him into an action pose where he's going to throw down with somebody, he does come with 2 fist hands for both the right and the left arm. Pretty neat. And the last accessory that he includes is an alternate head sculpt where he's mad. And I like the way that this came out, especially the way they colored the hair with the blue and the black mix. I do like that, so that's pretty cool. And that is it when it comes to his accessories. Now, the one thing I'm disappointed with is the fact that they did not include his swords. And if you know the character, he sometimes uses swords. And the best example of that is, of course, that one episode in X-Men 97 where him and Wolverine are fighting these humanoid sentinels. And this guy had 3 swords. He was using his tail as the other extension of his arm, fighting these humanoid sentinels, and that was just crazy. So, yeah, kind of a bummer that he doesn't have his swords. And if you wanted to give him swords to hold, that's not even possible because he doesn't have item gripping hands. So, yeah, that's the one thing I'm disappointed with. All right, let's talk about the aesthetic of this figure. So, as you can see, his costume is pretty simplistic looking. There's not too much going on here. Most of this is pretty much just painted on. In terms of like the texturing and stuff, most of it is just sculpted musculature that was already sculpted, because this body buck, from what I understand, I think is a reuse of the same body buck they've used for Nightcrawler before, I believe. I don't think this is a new body buck. So yeah, everything is pretty much just painted on, and there's not a whole lot of details going on in terms of like textures, but pretty simple. As for his other head sculpt here, let's take a good look at that. I like that he's smiling, and I like the fact that whenever you get an alternate head sculpt, you have the option to swap, so you can either have him with this head sculpt or the other one. So I do like that. And just like the other one, the way they painted this top part of his hair is kind of mixed in with the blue and the black. It seems like the other one has more paint on it. Oh yeah, on my copy, the other one has more paint. What the heck? Okay, that's interesting. So, pretty cool. And he does have his tail. His tail is a, separate piece here that's connected to this back part. And all it does is just rotate. Unfortunately, there is no bendy wire in here, so you can't, change the pose of his tail. It's just, one soft PVC piece that stays in the same position. But nevertheless, that's pretty cool to see. And that is basically it for aesthetics. There's really not much else going on here to talk about, because everything is just simple. All right. Let's talk about the articulation on this figure. So he does have the ability to look up, And I think the looking up is not too bad. Yeah, it's pretty good. He can look down. That's also pretty good. He can look side to side. And then he can also tilt his head side to side like this. So in terms of range of motion for his head sculpt, I think that's pretty good. As for his arms, they can't spread out like that. They can go forward, they can go backward, but they cannot go all the way because this piece right here for his shoulder does get in the way. He does have the upper swivel here, and that's pretty good. My copy of the figure is tight with certain joints. These two arms do not want a double joint for me for some reason. So I can't show that in this video, but they do double joint if you heat these up. I've heated them up before, but they just, you know, lock back in place. So I probably need to heat the joints up a little bit more so I can make it not do that ever again. But they do double joint. And for his hands, they do swivel, and there is a hinge so he can articulate as well. And for his torso, he doesn't have the upper cut here for rotation for his upper diaphragm. So instead, you get the leaning forward articulation with the hinge. And if you go back, there's that click noise. It's a very loud click noise. He can also lean back as well. So there's that. And he has rotation down here by the waist, but it is this very ugly cut. So, you know, depending on how you pose this figure and what action pose, yeah, be aware that this is like that. And this is the one thing that I've always kind of dislike about certain articulation things that they do in Marvel Legends is things like this, because, you know, they could have easily hit this with a belt or something if he wore one, right? So yeah, and also this brings into something that I want to talk about here. So, you know how he has the hinge and he can rotate? This is the one time, and I'm going to have a review for this figure tomorrow, but I want to bring this up now. He doesn't have that hinge, and he doesn't have a rotation down here. I don't know why they couldn't have, you know, done something more updated. This is the weird thing about Marvel Legends sometimes, is that some figures have, like, interesting articulation, and some figures, they just don't give them the same thing. I don't know what the decision is behind that. Like, for example, I would have given this figure an upper rotation, keeping this hinge and the waist articulation all together. I mean, yeah, it's not going to be a good-looking waist rotation, but that would have still been better because now you have more articulation with the torso. So it's really strange how, you know, you take this figure, for example, he has the upper rotation, but he doesn't have anything down here. Really strange. Just want to point that out. And for his legs, he does kick out. Not too bad. He does have double articulation in his legs. Let me see if I can get that to work at least. Yes, there we go. So that works. He does have die cuts, so they do swivel. Not this one. That one is tight. This one moves. There you go. And he doesn't have the rotation down here by the legs. Sometimes they do, depending on the boots they're wearing. So in this case, he has feet articulation that moves up and down and swivel side to side. And that is basically all the articulation on this figure. Basic Marvel Legend articulation as usual. And the last thing we like to do, as always, can he do the splits? Well, not a full-on split, but he can still spread out his legs pretty freaking good. So there's that. That's awesome. All right. And that is all the articulation on this figure. And now let's do some comparisons with some other figures. So let's put them next to some of his friends. Let's start with, start with Wolverine here. As you can see, even Nightcrawler is taller than Wolverine. That is interesting. Okay. Yeah, Wolverine's quite short. here is Nightcrawler next to Gambit. And here is Nightcrawler next to Rogue. Pretty cool. Oh, wait, hold up. Let me actually show it better. Without my hand in the way. There you go. All right. And then here he is with Jean. Hopefully she stands. All right. She's not falling over. And here he is with Cyclops. Pretty good. And last but not least, let's compare him with Fortnite Girl. And yeah, he's a little bit taller than Fortnite Girl. Or are they the same height? Actually, never mind. I think they might be the same height. Or he's a little bit taller. But there's that. And you know what? Let's just throw this in. I said that was the last one, but here he is with Agent Venom. Pretty cool. And that is it for comparisons. And yeah, in terms of action poses, you could probably do with this figure. Let me see if I can get him into one with his fist hands. So let me just do this really quickly. Doing this all behind the camera because it's kind of fidgeting to swap parts sometimes. Let me also change out the head sculpt. Luckily, the head sculpt for this figure is really easy to remove and swap. Because sometimes, you know, these head sculpts can be kind of a pain. Let me see if I can get him into some kind of pose. And then I'm going to get him back in frame. I guess, yeah, this could work. All right. Yeah, do something simple. So yeah, you can kind of get them into some sort of poses. Depends on how you are trying to pose this figure, of course. Like I said, I could probably do this better when I'm not recording. But yeah, this is like a good example of like a type of pose. But again, as you can see, if you're trying to do something like this, be aware that this, you know, rotation area in the waist is not the prettiest to look at. So depending on the angle that you have the photo in, you can probably hide it. So yeah. All right. And with that said, if you found today's look at Nightcrawler informative, do give this video a like. If you want to subscribe to the channel for more action figure content and whatever else I do on here, you can. You don't have to. In the end of the day, I make these videos for fun. And with that said, take care and I will see you in the next video.